Namaskar and welcome back to Media Scan, your weekend dose of headlines, controversies and perspectives. This week, a very interesting book launch event in the national capital brought back the focus to the transformational change, the promise, the delivery and the magic that Narendra Modi has brought to the politics of the country. Selected authors from various fields of life, including psephology, science, astrology, economy of course, industry and politics have contributed to a very interesting document, Modi at 20, where they share their experiences, their perspectives and various anecdotes apart from the impressions of what makes this Modi magic click. We shall have an interesting conversation on Modi at 20 later in the episode. But first up, what made news? In twin separate incidents this week, terrorists tried to disrupt peace and foment social tension. In Punjab, a rocket-propelled grenade attack at the intelligence headquarters of the state police in Mohali was found to have been engineered by Khalistani operative Rinda with the help of a local gangster. While in Kashmir, Rahul Bhatt, a government employee stationed in Chadura of district Budgam, was shot down in his office premises. Kashmiri Pandits and others serving in the valley under a rehabilitation scheme protested after the killing, citing security concerns. Meanwhile, DGP Dilbag Singh confirmed that all three terrorists responsible for shooting Rahul Bhatt had been gunned down in a quick follow-up operation. 100% coverage of welfare schemes or saturation is his dream, as saturation leaves no space for appeasement politics. This was underlined by Prime Minister Narendra Modi while addressing the Utkarsh Samaroh in Bharuch virtually. The event marked 100% coverage of all beneficiaries of 4 key government schemes in that district. PM Modi became emotional when a beneficiary shared her resolve to become a doctor and how she and her visually impaired father had benefited from the various schemes. Efforts to disrupt a court-mandated survey in the Gyanvapi Masjid premises in Varanasi were foiled when the court ordered that the survey must be conducted, and that too by May 17th. The survey was ordered after 5 devotees petitioned the court to allow them access for daily puja at the Sringar Gauri temple, which falls within the premises. The mosque administration and some others had initially obstructed the survey team by raising questions on the impartiality of the advocate commissioner appointed by the court. The Sedition Law, which has often generated hot political debates, was practically put on hold this week by the Apex Court. This came following the centre's declaration that it would review the provisions of the archaic law. PM Modi had argued that while we are observing the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, there is a need to decolonize our legal framework too. Realizing the need to arrest its steady decline countrywide, the Congress top brass came together for a brainstorming at Udaipur in Rajasthan. Senior party leaders had started publicly questioning the leadership for refusing to heed their calls. But the Nav Sankalp Chintan Shivir came for flack on the very first day, as the proposal of one family, one ticket gave some noticeable exemptions, including, of course, the Gandhis. So those were some of the headlines you saw across media space through the week. Viewers, on various occasions in our episodes on Media Scan, we have been trying to raise how the Western media has always had a checkered view, a different set of standards while judging the situation in our country, the leadership of our country. But very interestingly, even now, those Western media outlets, particularly as you may have seen in The Economist this week, have started grudgingly accepting that yes, if there is hope of some improvement in the lot of the country, in bringing transformation for the country, that only depends on the current leadership, that is Narendra Modi. They may not have accepted it very happily, but they do say that it seems to be so. Now, this word, this particular phenomenon, transformation, was also at the core of the discussion when a very interesting volume was released in the national capital earlier this week. The book, titled Modi at 20, talks about 20 years of Narendra Modi as head of government. The first 12 plus years as Chief Minister in Gujarat, and the other nearly 8 years here in Delhi as the Prime Minister of the country. So who are the authors who have contributed their views, their analysis, their perspectives to this very interesting volume, Modi at 20, Dreams to Delivery? Also, what was the concept about having a book at this particular juncture? How did the whole project take place? And what do the authors think about it? To answer all these questions, I have a very interesting panel of guests here with me this evening. So let's get along and see what they have to tell us about Modi at 20. My first guest for the evening, Hitesh Jain, Director of Bluecraft. This is the organization which originally conceptualized this whole project. Hitesh Jain will be able to tell us better why did they come upon this idea, how did they choose the authors who have contributed, about 21 of them, and then how did the project progress. My first guest for the evening, Hitesh Jain, Director, Bluecraft Foundation. Welcome, Hitesh Jain. I hope to have a wonderful conversation with this evening with you.
Thank you, Smita ji.
My second guest for the evening, a very well-known media personality. You have been reading him, watching him across TV channels in the whole country, a well-known psephologist, known to have been able to read the Indian electorate, the voter, better than anybody else. Let me welcome Pradeep Gupta, the head of Access My India and one of our better-known psephologists in India. Welcome, Pradeep Gupta, also joining Media Scan for the first time. I hope we'll have an interesting conversation with you.
Thank you, Smita ji, for having me here.
Wonderful, Mr. Pradeep Gupta. And my first question also is to you, sir. I think you understand the Indian electorate perhaps better than many of your other contemporaries in the same industry. When it comes to Narendra Modi, I was reading your comments in the book also. And if I were to ask you, sir, you have followed and monitored the popularity of so many other politicians, men and women in the country. What would you say is that one X factor, that one special thing which defines Narendra Modi's popularity as compared to other people in the contemporary times or even in the past? Mr. Gupta.
So any election for that matter is important to understand how election being held in India and what is the ecosystem of any election for that matter.
Right.
So there are only three things when it comes to election. One is the people who elect the government and leader for that matter. The second is the performance of incumbent government whom they voted 5 years back. People evaluate their performance, the government performance. And the third thing is the leader whom they are going to elect. So these are the three things. You asked one important thing about Narendra Modi, how and why he is winning election continuously for last 20 years. So in one word, I would say the kind of connect and understanding of the people Modi has. I mean, that is the big difference, I would say. I'll give you these small examples, when people make their choices when it comes to, electing the government and the leader for that matter, they have certain set of expectations, aspirations, their problems, issues, all these things are there before they make the choice. And when it comes to Modi as a leader, who is leader? You need to understand who is leader. A leader is a public representative. Unless and until leader understand their problems, their issues, their expectations, their like, their dislike, what are you leader for? So when it comes to Modi, I would say the way he understands the people of India across the geography, across the demography is extraordinarily, I would say totally extraordinary. I have never seen that, the kind of understanding he has when it comes to the people of India. Now I'll tell you 3, 4, 5 basic thing, very basic thing. For
Right.
last 70 years,
But also, Mr. Gupta, if I may interrupt you, because the buzzword, the title in the book talks about delivery. How much of a factor is this delivery of governance, delivery of schemes and people's promises a factor when you see it, vis-a-vis the electoral benefits? I mean, translating into votes.
see, the very purpose and expectation of any leader, be it CM or PM or MP or even MPA, is the delivery. What are you there for? What are you there
Right.
for? Why are you sitting on that particular chair? That's what I said. People have set of expectations, and I'll just give you the very, pertinent example. You will get to know very easily. In fact, our
Yes,
viewer
yes. Please go
will be
ahead.
very easier for our viewers to understand. Now tell me, last 70 years, who doesn't know the open defecation in the country?
Right.
The state of open defecation, more than 70% people go, in open before Modi resumed the, prime minister office in 2014. Who doesn't know women carrying water onto their heads? Who doesn't know the kind of kitchens suffocated with smoke, and they have to bring wood or the coal for cooking their food? Who doesn't know the kind of state of a woman? I am talking about all 70% who lives in rural and who are actually living on, I would say, the kind of their income is less than $100 a month. Less than $100 a month. And they were on the mercy of their men, the chief wage earner. All these things are the issues which is there, which is prevailing over last 70 years. And it's not in the small size. When I say 70% of population, I am talking about excess of 80 crore people of the country. So the kind of understanding their needs, their expectations, their problems, this is what make Modi totally different than any other leader, which is quite evident in front of you. And what he has done in last 8 years, which could not be done in last 70 years. This is the example.
That point is well taken, sir. That point is well taken. Mr. Hitesh Jain, we were just speaking to Pradeep Gupta and bringing you into the conversation now. My first curiosity is, you see, the usual practice is either to sum up or to document a popular leader, a great person's life in one book, or to take up his or her profile in one position as Prime Minister or Chief Minister for a certain period of time. But this particular angle of conceptualizing a book of Narendra Modi at the point of 20 years of his life as head of government, not exactly his entire political life. I mean, how did this idea really germinate, and why is it different from other similar books, sir?
The rise of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji is a watershed moment in Indian politics. Never before you have seen someone who has been elected for a continuous period of 20 years, first as a Chief Minister of the Gujarat and then as the Prime Minister of India. And for example, in terms of his appeal, in terms of his outreach, in terms of the scale that he has achieved, in terms of the mandate that he has achieved, and in terms of the popularity that he has achieved, through the mandate and also through the delivery of the work. So we found that when we are talking about transformation of governance in India, after India is celebrating 75th year of Indian independence, and when we are speaking about Amrut Kal, and when we are speaking about that whether there has been a transformation of governance, one person that came to our mind, looking at all the factors, it was Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, and therefore we felt that it was we had a unique leader who has really transformed the governance, who have with the transformation of mindset, of the people, of the way people are working in the government, the way people in this country are also working. For example, by
So,
nudging
Mr.
people.
Jain, I understand the central idea behind the book that you are telling us. However, wasn't it difficult to choose which of the authors to request or to approach, and how challenging was it to be able to arrange the articles, the perspective, the anecdotes and experiences of all those great people you have managed to in such a short period of time?
Well, I will tell you, it was not a challenge, because when you have a leadership as charismatic as Shri Narendra Modi ji, and the fact that when we speak about delivery in foreign policy, we speak about the delivery in the way India's faced the COVID pandemic, and the manner in which we achieved the results in the healthcare system. For example, we were also speaking about education, the new education policy. We were also talking about the leader of the political party. So, all these authors have, in some point of a time, have spent close to 20 years. For the last 20 years, they have been dealing with the Prime Minister. And fairly, they have also articulated their thoughts. And I guess the list could have been longer. The challenge was to prune the list as to who can be participating and who can author the chapter. Because at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that, we did not want to go in 2 volumes, but we wanted to we wanted to complete the book in the single volume. So
right.
the
So I
challenge was
guess the part that got left behind may be carried on in a further project, sir. But on that point, I would like to bring in Pradeep Gupta back into the discussion. But before that, can we just listen in to what Home Minister Amit Shah had to say during that sober but very interesting book launch program earlier this week?
उनकी सोच की दिशा उद्योग दिशा है। वो हमेशा रचनात्मक तरीके से सोचते हैं, वो हमेशा उच्च लक्ष्यों की ओर सोचते हैं, और वो हमेशा सबसे ज्यादा परिणाम लाने की सोचते हैं। ये उद्योगति की सोच ने इस देश के अंदर बहुत बड़ा परिवर्तन किया है। संवेदनशीलता, छोटे से छोटे व्यक्ति के बारे में सोचना। देश के प्रधानमंत्री के नाते मैं एक छोटी सी चीज का उदाहरण कहना चाहता हूं। एक बहुत गंभीर मीटिंग चल रही थी, उस वक्त मैं पार्टी का अध्यक्ष था। मोदी जी की ऑफिस में मीटिंग चल रही थी। एक मयूर आया और उसने कांच की दीवार पर जोर से अपनी चोंच मारना शुरू कर दिया। 2-3 मिनट तक ये प्रक्रिया चली। मोदी जी ने घंटी बजाई, किसी को बुलाया और कहा कि भाई इसका दाना आज नहीं डाला गया है, जरा चिंता करो, ये भूखा है। देश के प्रधानमंत्री को ये सोच, इतनी बड़ी मीटिंग में आना, ये बताता है कि कितने संवेदनशील व्यक्ति हैं।
On a different question, Mr. Gupta, and this I am asking you because in the course of your work, you must be meeting so many thousands of voters, perhaps lakhs of them, and not just in any one section of the country, but across all social groups, across geographical boundaries, and people coming from various communities, various social strata. So this question is particularly to you, sir. And I want to know, everybody keeps writing, and we have found reflection in this book too, that the biggest thing that Narendra Modi brings to the table is being a master communicator. In your experience, sir, how much of his communication magic, which is often referred to by writers and journalists as Modi magic, is a factor or plays a role in his popularity or the trust that people have?
See, again, I will say you need to understand who is leader, who connect with the people. Until and unless you connect in their language, their culture, their dialect, how can you understand the depth of the problem or issues they are facing? So the way he connect with the people across the spectrum, I am talking about right from the top creamy layer to the bottom of the pyramid, across the board, unless you talk their language, their dialect, I mean, what are you leader for?
So I'll ask you a more direct question, sir.
Yeah.
My question is, a lot of people say that Narendra Modi's popularity has peaked. He has won a second Lok Sabha. First of all, He became Prime Minister with clear majority after 3 long decades. And then he comes back winning another Lok Sabha with a bigger number of seats.
Right.
Do you think the best of Narendra Modi's political magic has already been witnessed? Or would you say the pinnacle, the best is yet to come?
I would say it has reached to a peak in 3 zones. In India, we call it north, south, east, west. You know, in 3 zones, which is north, which is west, and which is east, it has reached to the peak. I mean, what do you expect if he is winning all 26 seats of Gujarat, all 25 seats of Rajasthan, and in fact, all Delhi 7 seats, Himachal Pradesh, all the seats. So if you see this phenomena, I mean, it cannot be better than this when it comes to, but when
so
it comes
you are
to
saying that his popularity may have peaked in some zones of the country, but there are pockets which remain where we can see this in the coming days. Is that what you are saying?
I am saying not some pockets, it is peaked. I am saying most of the 3/4, in fact. If you see the north, east and west, it is 3/4 of the country. Only the popularity or the magic has to yet to reach to the peak in the southern states, I would say. Because in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala, BJP has hardly any presence when it comes to Lok Sabha seat, winning the Lok Sabha seats.
Fine.
They're
Point taken,
very
sir.
well in Karnataka and Telangana.
Absolutely, Mr. Pradeep Gupta. And on the same question, I would like to bring into the discussion Mr. Hitesh Jain as well. Hitesh Jain, my curiosity was, a lot of people keep stressing on Modi magic to be the real, you know, the formula being his being a master communicator. In your conversations with the various authors and in your experience so far, do you think his communication is the biggest differentiator for Narendra Modi? Or is it a combination of communication, delivery, governance, everything else? How would you look at it, sir?
Well, of course, communication, delivery, governance, but along with that, the authors, when I have communicated with them, they have pointed out that it is transformation of mindset that has made the difference. Because you can make an appeal, but the appeal has to be followed with the delivery has to be followed with the scale, and the scale requires a mindset to achieve, set a target, a mindset to work towards the target, and a mindset to have a positive attitudes, for example, to achieve any result. For a simple example like Swachh Bharat, which people touted, what is this Swachh Bharat? But to show a mindset that, I mean, ultimately when you look at the problems of the healthcare, then Swachh Bharat did play an important role towards the improving the healthcare system of the country. Or for example, toilet. Take the example of toilet. People said that on the 15th August speech you covered about the toilet. But if you will look at the problems in this country, where majority of the population did not even have a toilet, but to think from that small aspects and ensure that personal hygiene, swachh cleanliness will lead to a better healthcare system for the people. So that shows the ability of a person and the mindset of the person to bring the transformational changes.
So, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, you just heard Hitesh Jain articulating how it is a combination of various factors. Finally, it is the change that has been brought into the lives of people that makes Narendra Modi stand apart. Would you quickly like to add anything to it, sir, Mr. Gupta?
I would say one thing is the focus, and focus is being towards country and countrymen, nothing else. This is something I would like to add, whatever just now Hitesh has mentioned.
Perfectly, sir. And I think you have sort of done my job for me this time by summing up the sort of this entire discussion. On that point, sir, I am afraid I have completely run out of time. So let me thank you, Mr. Gupta, profusely for finding the time to join us in this discussion in such a hectic week for you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, for sparing all the time. Also, Mr. Hitesh Jain, I know this was one of a challenging week for you, sir, but yet you found the time from Mumbai to join our show. Thank you for joining Media Scan for the first time. So with those two special guests, Pradeep Gupta and Hitesh Jain, what we have been able to gather is there are a lot of factors which go into making a leader great, popular, acceptable. Most important of all, the question of delivery, because at the end of the day, it is not just good words. It is the deeds, the performance and the results which count. On that note, viewers, it's a wrap-up on Media Scan for this evening. But do keep watching DD India as we shall continue to scan the media for you.